Well, let's consider some examples of different classes of levers. Here I have my cart, and if I want to lift it up with a lever, I need a fulcrum. So I'm just using this bottle as a fulcrum. I place my lever underneath my load, and here's my fulcrum, and then I apply the effort at the other end. And notice that I can lift up the load a little bit, and I'm moving my lever, my effort over here through a longer distance. And there's my fulcrum. An example of a first-class lever: load, fulcrum, effort. If I want to use it as a wheelbarrow has a wheel here, so that becomes my fulcrum. The load sits in the box on here, and my handles are right here, and I lift it up, and we can then roll the load. So my load sits here, my effort is over here, and the fulcrum is then the front wheel from a wheelbarrow. I have a pair of pliers here. What class of lever do we have here? Well, I apply my effort on the handle, and then I put my load then between the jaws of the pliers. So my load is here. I'm exerting the effort with my fingers here. This is my fulcrum. So it's again a first-class lever. Now, this particular pair of pliers also has a grooved edge in here so they can hold things. If I hold it like this now, I now have a different class of lever. I now have my fulcrum still in the same place, but my load is being applied on the same side as my effort. And so hence this is a second-class lever. And so when I squeeze it, I can then hold this really tightly. So I can actually use then a small effort to really put a lot of force on the nail and hold it in place tightly. A second-class lever. A pair of scissors is another example of a lever. My fulcrum, where the two halves are joined. My load is the cutting edge of the scissors. My effort is then applied with my fingers and thumb. And so, load, fulcrum, effort, an example of a first-class lever. I can take one of our clamps that we used. So again, a clamp is really a specialized lever. My fulcrum is here. I've got a fixed jaw and I've got a movable jaw. My fulcrum is here. My effort is applied with the screw, and the load is in between the jaws of the clamp. And so if I clamp my thumb, for example, I'm applying the effort here, and my load is here, the fulcrum is here, so we have the fulcrum, effort, and load, an example of a third-class lever. Similarly, my muscles also behave as a third-class lever. So when I hold a weight in my hands, my muscles have to actually apply a force to keep this up. So my fulcrum is my elbow, my load is my hand and what's in it, and my muscles then have to apply the effort in front of the fulcrum, so it's between my fulcrum and the load, and so that's an example of a third-class lever. And when you consider the mass that we can carry, or the weight that our hands can support, you can see that our muscles must exert a tremendous force in order to be able to lift a heavy object. It's a marvelous way in which our bodies have been created so that we can then lift heavy objects with our muscles exerting tremendous forces on our bones and being able then to act as a third-class lever. A claw hammer is another example of a lever application. We, for example, may want to pull out a nail that's in a board. The way we do that, we use the claw on the hammer and we pull back. So where is the load? Well, the load is pulling the nail out of the wood. So the load itself is in our nail that's in the wood. I'm applying my effort up here, and my fulcrum is then the bottom part of the hammer. And so I apply my effort and pull. And what class of lever do we have? Well, it's again a first class lever. Load, fulcrum, and effort. So the load and the effort are on opposite sides of the fulcrum. That makes it a first class lever. Another common household item, a pair of tweezers. What class of lever would this be? Our fulcrum is right here. I apply the effort here, and the load then would be at the end. So load, effort, fulcrum, a third class lever. Or we can take a pair of tongs. Fulcrum, right in the center here, much like the scissors. I apply the effort on this end, and my load is then between the jaws of the tongs. How about this test tube holder? To open it up, I have to apply an effort here, which then causes the jaws to move, and I can then hold it this way. So the load is here, my fulcrum is this end, and I apply the effort in the middle. Again, an example of a third class lever. And then I have a lighter. Notice, again, my fulcrum is at this end. I apply my effort here, causing then the flint to move across the striker plate, the iron. And so the load is the friction between the flint and the iron. My effort is being applied here, and my fulcrum is here. An example of a third class lever. Another example of a lever is a can opener. When we use the can opener, we're applying the effort on the handle. The fulcrum is at this point, which sits on the edge of the can, and the part that pierces the can lid is the load. And so load, fulcrum, effort, a third class lever. Another common example is the nutcracker. We place the nut between the fulcrum right here and our effort. And so our load is right here, the fulcrum is here, the effort is here. And when we apply the effort, we can then use a fairly small effort to then apply a large force to the nut and crack it. An example of a second class lever.